Welcome to Inform TV. I'm Alan Repke, Alexandria, Minnesota. This week we're going to take a look at the Treasury Statement to give you, our listeners, some insight on what government is doing in spending. You know, we've talked here about the European situation. We talked about the problems that we're having here, obviously, with our budget and how our elected officials are handling the issues of the day. But to get a good understanding of that, I think we have to direct you to some numbers, and we're going to talk about some numbers, and it's really tough to talk about them without confusing you. Yet at the same time, I think we have to do it. The numbers are massive, the numbers are immense, the numbers are confusing, and I think our elected officials and the bureaucrats that serve them and not us, in too many cases at least, set it up that way. And so before we get started in our program this week, prior to Christmas, and maybe a few of you will see this program before Christmas and some after, so I wish you a very Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year as well. And hopefully the new year brings progress to our world, yet I think we have to kind of keep our head low and start making sure that our government, our business activities, our world in general starts looking out for the average person and focus less on the success of business and more on the focus of average citizens. And with that, we're going to tell you to look, type in your Google box the U.S. Treasury, and we'll take a look at their monthly statement. In fact, I think if you just write Treasury monthly statement, it should come up for you. If not, type in fms.treas.gov. In other words, fms.treas.gov, and you should see this statement that I'm going to be talking about here, because I think each and every one of you, whether Republican or Democrat, Tea Party, Occupy, or just a hardcore moderate like myself, you need to take a little time and look at these numbers for yourself. And with that, when we get into this week's program, I'm only going to do one program. I'm trying to figure out, and spending my time on trying to figure out how to make this a monetary success rather than coming out of my hide as a weekend employee. And we're starting to make some progress on that. But with that, I'll also give you a little insight on had a person stop me on the street and said, well, hell, there's the guy that's informed. I want to be informed as where can I get lutefisk this season? And I forgot to mention that last week you can go to Nelson, Minnesota, the little town between east of Alexandria and the town of Osakis, and the Corral Supper Club there. You can have a good lutefisk meal there. I think Ken is having it till mid-January, so call for reservations or call for information to the Corral restaurant there in Nelson, Minnesota for lutefisk. I went there myself to have a meal to make sure it was up to standards. Ken does a great job there and his staff. In fact, I had my Thanksgiving meal at the Corral restaurant, so check that out. If you're interested in lutefisk, whether you're living in the Fargo-Moorhead area, Detroit Lakes, Fergus Falls, they know how to cook up lutefisk in the right way, and I think they're till mid-January, so you don't have much time left to get that lutefisk meal in yet. And yet at the same time, I want you to start concentrating on, I think, next week's program. We got some help on doing a little sandblasting of a small chunk of a pipeline, 36-inch pipeline from the place there in Westport that does sandblasting. So if you need some sandblasting, call them in Westport there. I don't have his card right in front of me at the moment, but he did some sandblasting for you in a very quick way, and we've got the group out at Carlos out there, Mirror Fabrication, making me a little frame, and I'm going to have that chunk of pipe that's in the news, the Keystone Pipeline, that Congress, as I'm filming this right before Christmas, about Congress trying to decide whether we're going to have a one-year extension of the payroll tax thing or just a 2-month deal. And one of the things in that is whether the president is going to go forward with this Keystone Pipeline, a 36-inch pipeline. Similar pipeline already goes through the state of Minnesota, and I believe across portions of North Dakota as well, all the way up, I think it's till Alberta. So to show you a little bit how incompetent our government has become today, this isn't something new. And truly it should be going across the state of Nebraska, and like I said, I'm going to do a program on that. But start checking with Fat Daddy's restaurant here in Alexandria, because Charlie there is good enough to let me drop off a piece of pipe, and I think I'll have it there next week, the week between Christmas and New Year's, so you can take a look at for yourself to see how incredibly thick this pipe is, how incredibly big it is, and definitely it should be bringing crude oil down to American markets here, all the way down to the Gulf. It's 36-inch pipe, almost an inch thick. It's proven. It's like pipe has been in the ground for 15 years now, and I want you to personally look at that to see how our government plays politics rather than sound policy. We got people out there paying $3.80 a gallon for home heating oil this winter, $1 a gallon, or almost $1 a gallon more than gasoline, and gasoline's got what, about 30 cents worth of tax on it beside. Just absolute insane energy policy in this country, and yet we have folks in Washington, from our president to many congressmen and senators, making this pipeline a hostage situation, and yet we have all this uncertainty going on with the Mideast. We just pulled out of Iraq, and which I think was a very premature statement, and just goes to show how our government has been in a position where we went into the second or third biggest oil reserve in the world, and we had the most powerful army in the world situated there for 9 years, and we did not bring that oil industry back to full production, to the level to compete with the Saudis. Shows how incredibly incompetent both our Republican leaders as well as our Democratic leaders have been. How could you put the most powerful army in the history of the world into an area where all you had to do is back trucks up, put the derrick up and drill a well and start laying pipeline, just like we're talking about here in the Keystone pipeline situation that Congress is holding up, Congress and the President. Shows that we do not have true leaders in place. And one of the things that as we leave Iraq without that massive oil supply, we also have to talk about Afghanistan. This Christmas season, obviously, we give our thoughts and prayers to our veterans and our veteran families there for safe return to their families. But the reality in a democracy, in a world of civilization, somebody has to provide protection and leadership for the world. And one superpower clearly is the best way to do that. But our economy cannot afford to do it all ourselves. So we have allies and we have a world that needs peace, and we have to see that it takes flourishing, that we keep our world at peace coming into this new year. And yet at the same time, we have to question our policy people, our elected officials, where we just walked out of that war zone in Iraq, where we failed to get pipelines in place to bring that energy out, to fund some of the costs of that war, of bringing the potential for peace to the people of Iraq and that region of the world, that incredibly important region of the world. And suddenly the president just declared mission accomplished. It's his actions are no different than Bush's on that aircraft carrier. Suddenly, just out of the blue, they determined the job is done. Yet the correspondent from NBC, I can't think of his name, but obviously you know who I'm talking about, the war correspondent, there's been in the middle of this situation. He told Brian Williams that in very plain terms that he didn't think our troops were ready to leave, or that the Iraqi situation there was safe and in a position that we should get out of there. So here we sit with the world ending 2011, where we just suddenly pull out of the center of the oil patch, the center of massive oil reserves, that after 9 years of occupation, we did not bring that country into massive outputs of energy to both reduce the price of oil worldwide and to fund some of the cost of the war. I mean, it's just absurd. We as citizens should be looking at the conclusion of the Iraq situation, where we had 4,500 brave American men and women lose their lives, probably an equal amount injured for life, and yet we didn't tap that oil reserve. You talk about a D-minus report on government policy. That truly is one of them. Yet at the same time, we're soon going to have a report on the Chevy Volt here that has a lithium battery. In fact, go to your Chevy dealer. I'm going to give you some assignments. Go to your Chevy dealer and said, when are you going to help Alan Repke at Inform TV present the information on the Chevy Volt in a program form for us, and see if I can generate a little money of showing you what we should and must do in the future to address efficient transportation and less dependence on foreign oil or oil in general. And at the same time, we need to be, as these elected officials are home in the Christmas season, asking them, what is the plan for Afghanistan? Because what did we find out, or what did our military tell us a few years ago already? That Afghanistan has a major deposit of lithium needed for these batteries for the cars of the future. That we have a gasoline engine that generates electricity and yet is backed by gasoline, so when the battery goes dead on a longer trip, all you do is keep putting gas in the tank like you're doing in your regular car. And yet we do not have a forward-looking policy as far as Afghanistan is concerned to see that that lithium is available to us and the world, and as a source to reduce the cost of that war. Once again, we failed in Iraq, but we cannot fail financially or from a resources there to see that the world has access to that lithium. And I guess that's one of the things I want you to truly talk about when your congressmen and senators are home, and when you start getting involved in caucuses and all that kind of thing for the 2012 election cycle. Make sure your political parties are involved in this debate and action. The other thing people have asked me about is, can we do anything to help you? And obviously, yes, one of the things I've had some people ask me about, I would like, obviously you're tracking information on a daily basis. Could you email me some of your thoughts, or could you email me after a program is aired at least once for our community channels, that you send that to me, so if I miss the schedule, I've got it on my computer, or I can send the program to a friend. And I'm a person that put everything on the line and lost it to try to address the mess that we're now in, and saw it coming. And if you want to do such a thing where I produce either 2 programs a week like I'm doing right now, or just one this week, and using a rerun of one of the other programs, I may start producing a 3rd program, just a view of the week, midweek deal that's current, that I email out to people that support Inform TV. And I'm looking at a contribution after the first of the year, informtv.com. A check for $50 and mail it to Box 333, Alexandria, Minnesota. 333, Alexandria, Minnesota, informtv.com, because I'm finally putting a business structure together right after the first of the year. So if you want to be on the list for some additional information from Inform TV, or the sources of all the things we're looking at, and just so you can say that you're doing something rather than throwing money down the rat hole to the Republican Party or the Democratic Party, who are not addressing the needs of the average citizens. And that's why, a big reason why Alan Repke at Inform TV is on the air. So with that, I'm going to give you a little thought process going into the new year as far as what we as citizens need to be doing. And if you want to be helpful to see that Inform TV expands its range and gets on more community channels, including a YouTube channel, so that your friends in other parts of the country can look at Inform TV, and I can get a revenue stream of some form. Some of the channels that we're on, they'll allow us to do some other some advertising, where other community channels just will not allow it. And maybe you can talk to your city council and stuff there. Why don't you let them at least post a couple ads to cover his cost and his time involved in Inform TV, or support us with a contribution, one of the two. And the other thing today that I want to look at when we look at our program for this day is the monthly Treasury Statement. And I truly want you, as I kind of stumbled through fms.treas.gov, a monthly Treasury Statement, I think probably Google will bring it up to you anyway, and start tracking this on a monthly basis. And the next one comes out the 12th of January for the money that's going out in December of this year. And here's what I wanted to think about from a standpoint of not throwing too many numbers up there to confuse you, but rather to do like our logo does, energize you on getting more involved, to see that our government only spends what they take in, or to see that new revenue comes in to take care of our situation. And here's a quick thing I want you to think about. In fiscal 2011 that ended the 1st of October, the receipts per month, average receipts for our past fiscal year, were $192 million per month. Yet the average outlay for fiscal 2011 were $192 billion per month in money coming in, yet our congressmen and our senators and our president, both Republicans and Democrats, allowed our government affairs to take in $192 billion per month, and yet spend $300 billion per month. Can you do that on your family budget, your farm budget, your small business budget, or the corporation you work for, or the county or school district you work for? Spend 56% more or 156% of what you take in? Just think of that, people. Yet at the same time, people, so I don't get too involved in numbers here, people have asked me, what do I think about the Social Security, what media now and our politicians are billing as a tax break for average citizens on the Social Security withholding, rather than taking out 6.2%, which we have traditionally, and dropping it to 4.2%, which has been going on for this past year, costing the Treasury Trust Fund about $160 to $170 billion. In other words, we have all this unfunded Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security obligations. And what is the solution by our President and our Congress? Is that we reduce the amount of money going into that. Clearly, people, what's going on for the past year with the reduction? In other words, people have contributed 2% more, 2% less than they should have. How can we justify that? We can't justify that, people. We have a government that's spending all this additional money per month, and we think we should get a tax break. And we think now that the Senate says we should roll it ahead for 2 months, and then we'll get it in a better form for the rest of the year, or even making it a 2-year extension, some have said. But now the House Republicans, as I'm talking here this 20th day of December, are talking about, and probably coming out with it already by the time I'm doing this taping, of making it a 1-year extension and calling for a conference committee. Both of their actions clearly based on the numbers, not my opinion, the numbers, we just can't justify doing it. We are making that Social Security fund a true Ponzi scheme. And now our media people, of course, they have to protect the English language, and they have to do the exact definition of Ponzi. Ponzi is when you don't have a true funding scheme unless somebody else keeps putting money in. You take out somebody else's money. By what is going on right now, you should lambaste all these congressmen and senators that are home on Christmas break. How do you think we're going to address our issues by giving us a tax break on our Social Security of $170 billion a year, just putting that much less money into the fund? How can we possibly justify that? The answer is we can't. And we already showed that we got 47% of the population not paying any federal income tax. How can we not have anything but these massive deficits that I'm talking about here, taking in $192 billion per month, yet spending $300 billion? Here's the quick bar now. I've talked enough. Hopefully I don't get you confused on numbers now. Here's a bar for the outlays for the first 2 months of fiscal year 2012 that we're on. Receipts are here, but here's outlays. And here's the deficit. And we'll just click up a little bit here for you, looking at these numbers in a pretty simple form. Here it shows, and that's why I encourage you to go there to the monthly Treasury Statement and look at the receipts that came in last October. We only took in $146 billion, but we spent $286 billion. And for our last fiscal year, the total receipts coming in from taxpayers and corporations were $2,302,495 million. $2.3 trillion, yet we spent $3.6 trillion. Just think of that, people. And we say we have leaders in Washington, people that are justifying taking in only $2.3 trillion but spending $3.6 trillion, and they call it growth in our economy. It's ridiculous. Now we're moving into the new year that started in the 1st of October, and year to date we've taken in $315 billion, yet we've spent $551 billion. Just think of that. For a deficit to date of $235 billion. Now remember, when our Congress, our super committee was assigned to cut $1.2 trillion over 10 years, that's only half of a 2-month deficit. You see why I'm upset? You see why you need to be upset? You see why you need to send Inform TV to your friends, to somebody that does not care about special interests, cares about the good of our country and a world that must be kept at peace, and a world that must look at alternative energy, must look at new technology, and must not be allowed to focus on the propaganda of growth and derivatives. That's what Inform TV is all about, and why we hope you continue to listen and to support us. Now, at the same point in time, when we look at these budget numbers, the numbers themselves just are mind-boggling. And here's some monthly chart of the monthly receipts and outlays. What does it show for this particular year? That we're not going to even have 1 month where we bring in more money than we spend. I mean, if there's ever a reason to really be pounding your finger on the chest of the congressman and senator that you have, and to question the Republican Party on their disastrous field, why they're not bringing a globalist in like Rex Tillerson that I've talked about here, somebody that knows this is not business, this is incompetence. This is not addressing the issues that we in a capitalistic society must address. And the receipts continue to show that the importance of these Social Security retirement funds, and yet here we're giving this massive tax break to all people, even to people, to the 47% that don't even pay any federal income tax. How can that be considered sound policy? How can we not address the issues of the day? And we're certainly not doing that. Here's what I want to show you as well, a thought process as we're running out of time. As individual income tax in the month of November brought in $70 billion, just about $71 billion. Yet corporate income taxes, they're crying on CNBC and all these media outlets you watch, the 6 o'clock, 10 o'clock news, the 5:30 news, we've got to make corporate taxes less strenuous, or at a lower rate. We need a lower rate for corporations. Individuals paid in almost $71 billion, people, in the month of November, and corporations only paid in $1.6 billion. And to date, the individuals have paid in $158 billion. Corporations have only paid in $4 billion. Just think of that, people. And the estimate for the full fiscal year, obviously corporations kind of lump in quarters, that type of thing. But we're saying that individuals, the Treasury now is showing that individuals will pay in $1.2 billion, 1.2 trillion, excuse me, $1.2 trillion, and corporations will pay in $323 billion. So in other words, we're talking, they're paying about a fourth of the revenue. Yet they're enjoying the very best of times. They're drowning in cash when what is happening to the individual? They're drowning in debt. They're drowning in a home mortgage that should have never been put together the way it is. We're running out of time. Thanks for listening to Inform TV. I'm Alan Repke.